The one question all college football fans have for TCU in 2023 is, are they going to be one hit wonders? In my opinion, I think they are. I think this is a team that we may never see play for a national championship again. This is a team that, let alone, may never make the college football playoffs again. However, I don't think it's going to be anything that they can control, and I don't think it's going to be a lack of talent. I say that because ultimately you have to look at the grand scheme of things in the college football landscape as a whole. They're competing in a conference where Texas is very, very strong. Oklahoma is going to be much better improved than last year. Kansas State isn't falling off, and then Texas Tech is a sleeper team for this year. TCU had to go 12-1 to make the college football playoff last year. 11-2 wouldn't have got it done. Now, I say that, and I say this, that this year my prediction for TCU is a 10-2 season. I don't think they're going to just wipe the floor with everybody. I don't think they're going to have as many one-possession games. I don't think they're going to have as good of a record as they had last year in one-possession games either. Now, TCU is a really good team last year. They lose Max Duggan, they lose Quentin Johnston, they lose Kendre Miller. Those are basically your three biggest threats you had offensively last season. When you put that together, you return 33% of your production from last year offensively. Defensively, though, you return 71%. So I'll get into their schedule. I'll cover their transfers, their recruits, and all that good stuff in just a second. But take a look at last year. You go 13-2. You were 12-0 headed in the conference championship week. You lose to Kansas State on a heartbreaking, I think it was like 2 inches, maybe, if that. So a very close game there. You went 9-0 in the Big 12. You had a lot of good road wins. You lost your starting quarterback in week 1 against Colorado. A lot of people don't realize that. Chandler Morris was TCU's starting quarterback last season. He beat out Max Duggan in camp. That was the transfer from SMU. And he was going to lead this team all season. Unfortunately, he gets hurt. Max Duggan comes in, and the rest is history. So you are getting your starting quarterback from last year back this year. So a huge get for TCU. Then let's take a look at their transfers and see who they are bringing in. You're bringing in Tico Brown, defensive lineman out of, I believe that's Missouri State or Montana State. Then you got Colin Deary, the Maryland transfer. You got Chance Nolan, the quarterback out of Oregon State. He transfers out. DJ Uiagalelei transfers in. You got Dylan Wright, the transfer from Minnesota. Jalen Robinson, a huge get from that wide receiver room from Ole Miss. I expect him to probably play immediately along with 2 other guys I'll reference in just a second. You got Rick Diabreu, defensive lineman out of East Carolina. You got Willis Patrick, the offensive lineman out of Jackson State, who will be an immediate starter. John Paul Richardson, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma State, who transferred in. You got Trey Sanders, who is a really good running back at Alabama. Had a couple injuries, set him back a little bit. Ultimately, he transfers to TCU. You got Tommy Brockmeyer, the interior offensive lineman out of Alabama again. Hey. Let go. Stop. You want to go in the pen? You got Jack Beck, the tight end out of LSU. JoJo Earl, the speedy wide receiver out of Alabama. He's going to come in and be an immediate starter along with John Paul Richardson, like I thought. And then the Ole Miss transfer as well. I think we'll rotate in with those two. Then Avery Helm, the cornerback out of Florida, ultimately kind of rounds out your transfer class. On top of that, they put together one hell of a recruiting class. You can see the number 24 overall between recruiting and transfer, number 20 recruiting class in 2023. You have Cordell Russell, 4-star wide receiver. Fontenette, the safety, another 4-star. Then you got Channing Kanata, the cornerback, 4-star. Sonny Dykes may not be the premier head coach that you hear talked about, like Ryan Day and Dabo and Saban and Brian Kelly. But the man can get it done on the recruiting trail. He knows how to recruit Texas. He knows how to recruit Louisiana, Arkansas, up in that area. He's been in Texas for I don't even know how many years, so he knows how the game works down there. Now, you continue down this list. to the guys that have already signed. And you look at that 3-star there, Jordan Bailey, another guy who's going to come in and probably not have an immediate impact this year, but ultimately is going to be one of the reasons why TCU finds themselves in the playoffs in 2024 and 2025 when we expand to 12 teams. Marcus Deal, defensive lineman, one of the top-rated recruits in this class. Avian Carter, defensive lineman, 4-star recruit, one of the top guys in this class. Cameron Cook, running back, 4-star. Zachary Chapman, defensive lineman, 4-star. Javian Wilcox, a huge get there, again, out of Lake Belton, Texas. Max Carroll, not sure where he's going to find himself just yet. I may can look. Yeah, we'll look at their depth chart really quick, see if I can see his name. Max Carroll, listed as an athlete. Okay, so I may just be missing him. I may just not see him right here. But then you got Fluellen, another athlete who could end up pretty much playing anywhere. You have Huddleston, the edge. Whitfield, offensive tackle. Vernon Glover Jr., a corner. Cooper Powers, the offensive lineman. And then it continues. Jordan Lester, the safety. Nerado Stoker, offensive lineman. And then Ramsey Brooks, another offensive lineman. So there was a huge number of players there that TCU signed for the front seven, the offensive line and defensive line. Now, they paired that with a bunch of transfer skill guys. You got wide receiver, running back, tight end, wide receiver, corner. I think there were 6 guys that transferred in from the SEC. Throw on a couple other Power 5 transfers, and TCU is looking really good heading into 2023. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, TCU is looking at a 10-2 season. I say that because I think you're ultimately going to drop one game later in the season, and I think you're going to drop one game that you probably should. I don't think that game is Colorado. I think Colorado has a huge amount of hype coming into this season. This is their first game under Dion. You're playing on the road against TCU. TCU, they're kind of pissed off about how they played against Georgia, so I'm going to take TCU to win that one. I think TCU ultimately starts about 6-0 when they go into, boy, that would be 6, right? Yeah, 7-0 when they go into that game against Kansas State. They don't play a ranked opponent until they play Kansas State. Nichols is going to be a win. Houston could be a tough one. That could be one of those games where I just said, they may not win that one. SMU, kind of the same thing. SMU and TCU's got a little rivalry going on. That's where Sonny Dykes came from. A lot of transfers came with him. Then you play West Virginia. West Virginia's going to get the brakes beat off of them by Penn State in week number 1. Chances are they don't even have Neil Brown as their head coach by the time they play TCU in week number 5. So I'm going to go with TCU to blow them out in that one. Then you play Iowa State, who's, again, not that good. But playing on the road in Ames is not an easy task, so TCU needs to be on upset alert now. When you get BYU at home, this could be a much different game if it was played in Utah. Now, Kansas State, you need a revenge game on them, but I'm pretty sure you played at Kansas State last year, barely won that one. Kansas State's not going to be an easy game there. Could be another game they drop. Texas Tech is my sleeper team, also ranked. You can see Texas is currently unranked. Don't expect it to be that way. Texas is going to have a much better year this year. Just trust me on that. Keep your eye out for Xavier Worthy to be in that Heisman conversation. Maybe even win it how Devontae Smith did in Steve Sarkisian's offense in 2020. Now, Baylor should be a win. Oklahoma will be much better improved. I think ultimately TCU drops a game to Texas or Oklahoma. I'm not going to say both. I'm not going to say they win both either. I just think ultimately, that late in the season, you're going to lose a game to one of those two teams. Then you got the Big 12 championship. So, like I said, I think this is going to be a 10-2 season for TCU. I don't think they're going to be world beaters. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think they're going to compete. But let's say, hypothetically here, TCU runs the table. They go 12-1 again. They go 13-0. They win the TCU. Or they win the Big 12, sorry. There's a couple other factors you have to take into consideration when considering who's going to make the college football playoff. There's only 4 teams that can make it in, right? You've got Alabama and Georgia, who ultimately are probably locked in to be the top 6. You've got LSU, who almost won the SEC last year. You've got Michigan, Ohio State, both really good teams. You've got Penn State, who's a sleeper team for this year. You got Florida State and Clemson out of the ACC, who could be another little needle in the haystack there that no one's really considering them to be a top dog anymore. They're considering them to be a top 10 team, but not a top 4 team. One of those two teams go 12-0, win the ACC, 12-1, 13-0, whatever. Put one of them in the college football playoff. So that's going to lower TCU's chance. So let's just say you got Big Ten champ, you got the Big 12, the ACC champ, you got the SEC champ. You're going to be looking at a Big 12 champ. It could be 11-2. You could have a Pac-12 champion that's 12-0, 12-1, 13-0. You could have, and those two teams could be Oregon, could be USC. So you're looking at, let's just play the game here: Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, Florida State, USC, Oregon, maybe Utah. That's a tough get that TCU is going to have to prove to the playoff committee that they deserve to be in the top 4 along with those guys. So let me know how you see this season playing out for TCU. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button and then leave a comment on the video, again, just letting us know how TCU will turn out in 2023.